Voice of the People is a dynamic and interactive radio phoning show that gives listeners a platform to voice their opinions on current affairs, social issues, and community concerns. With engaging discussions, expert insights, real-time audience participation. Voice of the People.
Zambian journalist, author, and diplomat who served as Zambia's ambassador to Germany from 2017 to 2024, also accredited to several other European nations. A seasoned media professional, as he was also the founding member of the Post newspaper and later editor-in-chief at the Daily Mail, earning the World Bank's Best Investigative Journalism Award in 2012. He authored the acclaimed biography Against All Odds, Zambia's President Edgar Chagwa Lungu's Rough Journey to State House, which became the first Zambian book sold at Barnes & Noble and was featured at the London Book Affair. And his career reflects a unique blend of journalism, literature, and diplomacy dedicated to national progress and international collaboration. Today on Voice of the People, we welcome Ambassador Anthony Luinda Mukwita to discuss Zambia's foreign policy across key regions, the League of African Ambassadors' role in advancing diplomacy, peace, and continental unity. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Miss Shekinah. Am I saying
Shekinah?
Shekinah. Miss Shekinah. I always want to say people's names correctly. Thank you very much, Shekinah. You're looking wonderful this morning.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Likewise. And now, Ambassador, let's take a look into Zambia's policy evolution. How would you describe Zambia's current foreign policy direction compared to now previous administrations? Especially when it comes to principles, have they remained constant throughout Zambia's foreign relations over time, or have we changed drastically?
I don't think we have changed much. Zambia's foreign policy has always been that of engaging with other countries, first regionally. You know, we belong to the Southern African Development Community, SADC. We also belong to the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. And above all, we belong to the continental body called the African Union, which previously used to be the Organization of African Unity. So our goals have remained quite consistent on a regional and continental level. There has been a little bit of a shift. I recall when I was ambassador and chargé d'affaires from Sweden to Germany, that there was a major shift under previous administration of President Edgar Lungu, where we said we should focus a little bit more on what was called economic diplomacy. Because before that, our diplomacy was mostly hinged on political diplomacy, kind of freedom diplomacy. A couple of countries under the founding president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, and thereafter were still under the yoke of colonialism. So our diplomacy was that, sort of hinged on ensuring that we liberate most part of Africa as the last bastion of peace and democracy. And then later on, we said, since we have attained, colonial emancipation, mental slavery, maybe we should now look at how we can enhance ourselves economically. So we shifted and started calling it economic diplomacy. And since the new administration of President Hakainde Hichilema came in, I think they have continued still on that same trajectory on ensuring that we enhance economic diplomacy.
Now, critics do argue that Zambia's foreign policy often shifts with changes in leadership rather than following a consistent long-term vision for Zambia as a whole. And Zambia has truly had a clear and stable foreign, as Zambia, if we can pose it in this context, has it truly had a clear and stable foreign policy direction over the years?
I think this is quite not just for Zambia, but it is sort of standard for many countries. Because countries, especially under democracy these days, there is always an ideological political stance. Yes. So, for instance, the previous administration in Zambia was calling itself grassroots, pro-poor party. So even their views and the direction they would like to take in diplomacy would be that one of how do you look at pro-poor. And the current government has been more of business, so their diplomacy would shift on how can we enhance more business while still looking at poverty. But this is not uniquely Zambian. This is the same kind of thing that happens also in the West. Remember what we have what we are practicing, both democracy and diplomacy, are really borrowed concepts. We are coming from villages. We are coming from the real democratos, which comes from Greek, getting together under a tree, you know, having a glass of beer and wine and tea or water or whatever you were having those days, what used to bring you together. The members say, "Chikarigawantu pansaka musunga wabwali." Yeah, so whatever brings us together, in the West, it's still the same kind of thing. I'll give you an example of the United States of America. And let me give an example of how their diplomatic foreign policy has been over, say, the past 10 years. So, for instance, there has been a support for the state of Israel, that Israel has the right to defend itself. That was the policy, that was the foreign policy and stance under President Joe Biden. And it is still the stand and policy under President Donald Trump.
Yes.
So, but there is being a major shift now. You can see that President Donald Trump says, "Hey, Benjamin Netanyahu, I am tired of hearing that about 20,000 children have died in 22 months. We got to stop this." And I am hearing, and you can see others such as the E3, that is the European Union countries such as Germany, such as France, such as the United Kingdom, which were consistently, relentlessly, and unequivocally supporting Israel. They are also beginning to shift because the number of people that are dying are a little bit too much, and they just can't fathom and stand the blood anymore. So even in the case of Zambia, I think we shift according to the times. But one thing that remains consistent is that we still want to interact with the rest of the region on our regional bodies such as SADC, COMESA, and the African Union, and the rest of the world.
Actually, speaking of SADC, I would say that Zambia is often seen as a quiet player. Has
Indeed.
Zambia really done enough to shape regional security, economic integration, or are we passive?
I don't think we are passive. I think we are probably, maybe I will use another word, a bit lukewarm, but also that comes from the fact that our stance has always been that of being a peacemaker, a love maker, the hugger. Compared to the aggressive sort of guy. We have invested a lot in peace over a long period of time. We are called a number of times in the UN Peace Index and other organizations as the last bastion of peace on the continent, and I think we should pat ourselves on the back for that, because we have seen that in the absence of peace, everything can go wrong. Look what's happening in the Eastern Congo between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Go look at what's happening in Somalia and Sudan. Huge famine, more than 1 million people displaced. You are walking around at bombs are just exploding. Sometimes we take things for granted. Here, the things that scare us is hearing that there's been a car accident on the road. 4 people have died because of a car accident. And when the road traffic, announces the statistics, it sounds as it's really wild. 2,000 people died the whole year from car accidents. But we hear about 200, 300 people dying every day. So rather than thinking that we have been quite the quiet player, actually it's good to be the quiet player. You don't attract too much attention to yourself regarding, violence and conflict. But we try to get in as much as possible. Remember, this is the place where lots of peace deals have been settled. The DRC peace talks were taking place right here in Zambia back in the 90s. The Angola peace pact between MPLA and UNITA were done right here in Lusaka. There has been a number of peace initiatives that were founded right here in Lusaka, Zambia. And even regional continental bodies such as SADC were formed right here. Right now we're talking about the League of African Ambassadors, which you mentioned at the very beginning of the program. They tried to set up the League of African Ambassadors in other African countries, and they didn't really get the groove right. But Zambia, after a period of more than 2 years, agreed that through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through the vetting processes, that is going to be here. We've got the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa. We also had other institutions such as ESAMI. We have lots of regional bodies, which means we are not a quiet player. That's why we have had this headquarters. COMESA's headquarters is here. ESAMI's headquarters was here. The preferential trade area was here. That is huge in terms of diplomacy. I mean, it would be like the New York of, the United States of America, or the African Union, or the United Nations Environmental Program in Kenya, UNEP. So we are quiet. We're a quiet player, I agree, but that is a positive on our part. It's not a bad thing. We do not attract controversy, but neither do we shy away from it. So we're trying to do the perfect balancing act of diplomacy.
Well, in terms of creating stronger diplomatic relations, China has played a pivotal role in our Zambian economic dispensation, and it has been a key partner for Zambia even before independence. Now, at this current state, what can we say that the relationship is right now?
The relationship between Zambia and China.
Yes.
I think I wrote a book, actually, my second book, apart from the book on President Edgar Lungu, my second book based on my second master's degree in international relations is called China in Africa, the Zambia story. That was the thesis. And this looks at the exact question that you ask, our relationship. Our relationship with China as Zambia stretches back to independence, even actually pro-independence. They were the fair weather friend of Zambia. Because of Zambia's involvement in the liberation struggle of the region, we were ostracized by the West, by the Americans, by the British. They didn't like us very much because we were helping Southern Rhodesia to get independence, because we were against the philosophy that held one race superior than the other, in simple terms, apartheid. So they didn't like us very much, so they blockaded us. You know, we're a landlocked country, 8 countries around us. In fact, now it has changed in diplomacy. We don't call it landlocked. This Fortrace has cracked the code. Land-linked. But it was very difficult for us to get our commodity. You know, we depend on copper and cobalt exports for more than 80% of our foreign currency earnings. So they shut us down, and China came to our aid and helped us build a railway line. Thanks to Dr. Kenneth Kaunda and his friend Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, the president of Tanzania. Mwalimu means the teacher. Both Kaunda and the Nyerere were teachers, and in their wisdom of wisdom, they tried to get financing and funding from the United States, and they tried from the United Kingdom, and they told them it ain't gonna happen over our dead bodies. And I think there is a very old saying from Julius Mwalimu Nyerere, who said, okay, we will build a railway line over your dead body. Yes, they were very resolute leaders back in the day. And we saw that railway line built at more than $500 million. At the time, China was very poor. In fact, they were called the poor man of Asia. They didn't even have enough money for themselves. But you see, China is a more than 5,000-year civilization.
Yes.
They have always had this vision of looking in the future. You look at Fortrace, you look at Shekinah, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Let me invest in them now, and we will, reap the fruits in the future. So they funded us a non-interest-free loan, and the Zambian economy kept on chugging and running. So that's how far our relationship goes. And then it came fast forward into the 21st century when I think when we changed administrations. After Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, we built universities, we built the UTH, we built a couple of World Bank schools. But then we didn't invest much into road infrastructure. We didn't invest much into electricity. So when Kaunda left, we came under President Frederick Titus Jacob Chiluba. We still had to look towards China for help. But again, we spent lots of time with what was called the HIPIC, Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative, to try and yoke ourselves out of debt. So we spent a lot of time on that, and we are also sort of capitalizing. So we still didn't do much into infrastructure until President Michael Sata came in 2011 September. That's when he came up with this radical infrastructure drive. And then we needed money. Of course, we couldn't get it from the West again, just like we couldn't get it from the West when we wanted a railway line. So the Patriotic Front under President Michael Sata, who unfortunately, may his soul rest in peace, only lasted about 2.5 years, 3 years in office, borrowed money from the Chinese government for the huge infrastructure drive. After he died, thanks again to consistency, because there was still one party, President Edgar Lungu, our 60th president, continued that drive. He did not break the code. So as a result, we get international airports such as the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, Harry Mwanga Airport, Simon Mwanseka Pwepwe, and a whole lot of roads. So inevitably, we became indebted to China. But when President Hakainde Hichilema came in, there seemed to have been a little bit of a gap. I think it took him about 10 months before he could go to Beijing. But we have seen that that relationship seems to have normalized now. And I think it happens. Every time there is a transition, you still want to see whether you can move on the same footing. So if we continue on this, trajectory, I think we should be good. You see, in diplomacy, we need as many friends as possible. We need America as a friend. We need China as a friend. We need the European Union as a friend. We need the African Union as a friend, because diplomacy is all about, as the veteran of diplomacy said, Dr. Henry Kissinger, a Harvard man, former Holocaust survivors family, said diplomacy is about Joe, not war. You know the Joes? It's all about talking. So we just have to keep talking, sitting on the table, have differences, and mend them. Hence the reason I think, we have still been friends with China. Remember, our debt at the moment stands at about, I think, 12 billion or 13 billion US dollar, our foreign debt, not our local debt. And a third of that belongs to China. So China, it's the bull in the China shop. We cannot avoid China. In fact, nobody can avoid China. I mean, it's the largest country, 50 million less than India, 1.4 billion people with an 11 trillion GDP, go figure, 11 trillion GDP. A small town in China is about 50 million people. A small town. Yes, I've been there twice. It's just amazing. Zambia, the entire country, is 20 million people. So how can you avoid, like Malcolm X said, one day I shall learn Mandarin, because there is no way you can avoid a country with 1 billion people. But that's 40 years ago. And here it is happening. So China. They're building more ships, more warheads and more nuclear heads than even the United States of America is able to. And the United States of America is the wealthiest and military mighty, 27 trillion US dollars. But they are always on the lookout for a Chinaman. So who is Zambia?
Oh, that's a very valid question. But it does lead to my next one, which I think a lot of people, especially when we do see more and more investment from China come in, and when we hear that we're actually getting more debt, there's a question that comes in of saying, how exactly is the government going to balance governance at the risk of becoming debt dependent to China? I mean, are we not just slowly entering into economic colonization? It's just another form this time around.
Well, debt is unavoidable. Like the Bible said, the poor shall always be among us, because you don't have enough. I mean, the richest country in the world is the United States, but it's also the most heavily indebted nation on the entire continent. In fact, Japan owns the United States' main debt, followed by China. So, but that is not to justify that Zambia should have debt. I think Zambia, as Africa's second largest producer of copper and cobalt, especially as we veer towards the EV revolution, the electric vehicles revolution, which is supposed to hit a mark of more than 900 billion by 2030. Zambia should be positioning itself to be getting at least $1 billion or $2 billion from this. And by this, I mean that could help into that question, that poignant question you ask of debt colonization. Because the more money then that we can make from our engagement into electric vehicles industry, the less dependent we will be on getting money either from China, from the European Union, or from the United States, or indeed even the World Bank and the IMF, if we get our groove right. I mean, some international studies say that we lose maybe about $3 billion either through tax evasion or tax avoidance every year from mining companies and other foreign countries. So I think that should answer the important question that you ask. If we lose about $3 billion a year and we revisit our tax policies, and we also look at value addition, and I am glad I've been watching on the news, President Hakainde Hichilema twice or three times has spoken about we're going to stop exporting raw copper, we're going to stop exporting, we're going to stockpile on gold. That should help. I'm a half glass full guy myself. I like to look at things, optimistically than half empty. So I think if we walk through what the administration is talking about, building up on the previous administration, capture as much taxes from the mining companies, increase our agriculture exports, instead of growing 3 million metric tons of maize or 4 million metric tons of maize per year, we should grow 10 million metric tons per year. We've got 750,000 square kilometers of land, 90% of it is arable. So smaller countries than us are able to export in Europe more maize than we do. So we should take a leaf from that and grow 8 million for exports. Get our tax policies correct, and that shall answer the questions Ms. Shekinah is asking of debt colonization. But at the moment, that danger is always there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, joining us in the studio, we have Ambassador Anthony Luvinda Mukwita, of course, to discuss Zambia's foreign policy across key regions and the League of African Ambassadors' role in advancing diplomacy, peace, and continental unity. The phone lines are open. You can come through. The numbers are 0979 192 485 or 0955 997 997. Whatever comment or question you have, you can come through via text or you can give us a call. Now, moving on, we can look at European countries. What is the current state of Zambia's engagement with these European countries, especially in areas like trade, as well as aid and investment?
Sorry, Ms. Fortrace, just rephrase the question again.
Okay, so the state of Zambia's engagement with European countries in terms of aid, trade, and of course investment. What's the state are we in right now?
I think we are still in a cordial diplomatic state. There has been some concerns, especially like maybe from the United States of America, where they've seen they have had either a reduction in aid because they are either concerned about pilferage or they are concerned that the aid is not going into the right direction. But in diplomacy, like I said earlier on, it's all about talking and getting around the table. And if you see that there is public statements that are being made, that means we still are good in terms of diplomacy. Because if you are not talking, then the relationship is broken. It's gone cold trail. But that is to say that there has been some sort of, bumps along the way. and they are being mended. But having said that, I'm not really for this notion of really depending on the United States of America in diplomacy, or really depending on the European Union. I have always said, even when I was in the Foreign Service, that we are a country of 50. We're a nation. We're a continent of 54 countries. Yeah, and we have our own regional bodies, SADC, COMESA, and the African Union. Our GDP is nothing if not negligible compared to just one European country, let me say the Federal Republic of Germany, the fourth largest economy in the entire Europe. It surpasses us by far, just one country. So my view, in order to answer your question of our engagement with the European Union, the United States of America, is we must first look inside. We must first look in the SADC region. Take, for instance, our competitive advantage of being centrally located among 8 countries. What are we trading with?
Yes.
Angola. Angola imports food, chickens, and beef and eggs worth more than $1 billion a year. From where? From Argentina, from Brazil. And yet we share one of the largest borders with Angola. Let us take a look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, huge country. Katanga province on our northern border alone has a population of the same, about almost Zambia. They consume goods from Zambia. We share in half our mealie meal, our chicken, our eggs. Let us look at Namibia. It's also our neighbor. They are in an arid country. They import cabbages and tomatoes and chickens from South Africa. Let us look at Botswana, same kind of thing. So I think we should look first inside our own country before we can proceed to start looking out into the European. That's what my view has been. If you can do your own backyard garden, get your tomatoes and your vegetables from there. Then you can go and get the goats and the meats outside, because you can't keep them in your yard anyway. So I want personally, if I was in those...
Actually, just to deviate a little bit, recently we have heard of how the African Union has backed, and even international organizations, of the 16th century Mercator map of the world in favor of one that more accurately displays Africa's size. And even some of the statements that were released, such as by the AU Commission Deputy Chairperson, she said that it's actually more than just a map. It's stereotypes like this that influence media, education, and even policy. Now, for somebody who's reading this and saying, but this is just a map, how does it even affect policy? In what way? I mean, okay, it's bigger, it's smaller.
Yeah.
How does it affect when it comes to trade, investment, even development when it comes to the West with Africa? How do such things, something as small as a map, affect policy?
It does, because, once you start having those maps, then you have boundaries, then you have visas, then you have passports, which is what makes the European Union different from us. I mean, I was in the Foreign Service for almost 10 years. So when I had a Schengen visa, I just, jumped on the plane and went into Poland, jumped on a plane, went into Switzerland, jumped on a plane, went into Hungary, Vienna and stuff, without all that hassle. The free movement just makes business much easier. Now, this is where you commend countries such as Kenya that has lifted visa for many African countries. So that means if instead of me hustling to go to Germany or Sweden for holiday, I will probably just jump on a plane an hour, 2 hours into Nairobi, Kenya, or go into the Serengeti Game Park and stuff like that. So that map isn't just a map as you look at it. It is a constraint on movement, and trade and economic diplomacy moves much better with, the free and easier movement. I mean, Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, once complained on a CNN program. I saw that there is about 35 visas he needs to move around Africa. So clearly, the hustle and bustle of going through the red tape of visas restricts business, which is one of the issues that We are trying to lobby as the League of African Ambassadors. I know you said we'll talk about it later, but it comes into this, There is this newly formed organization, the League of African Ambassadors. These are some of the things that it will be looking at lobbying with the African Union, looking at lobbying with the United Nations, looking at lobbying with other regional bodies, because its movements also increases economic diplomacy, and it also increases economic national enhancement.
Well, you did touch on the whole visa debacle. Of course, that's going on in the USA. So in the US now requires Zambians to pay up to $15,000 as a refundable bond of certain visas. Do you view this as a fair immigration safeguard or an outright barrier? Like you earlier on alluded to that, as a person, you need to have access to other countries and travel as much as you can to make business easier as well as diplomacy.
Yeah, the United States of America, like I said earlier on, is the largest economy in the whole world. It's the richest, as Donald Trump said. We're the best, we're the best, we're the biggest, we have everything, Yes, so it's, you always want to trade with the United States of America. So if they slap you with a 15,000 visa for business and leisure, or bleisure, as they call it in colloquial, and you are a country whose ordinary person lives on $1 per day, and 15,000 at today's rate is about 300,000 kwacha. That's not a visa fee, that's a crater, that's a bomb. It means it restricts Miss Fortrace, Miss Shekinah, to go for a trade expo to the United States of America, because you are thinking of putting together, just for the two of you, 600,000 kwacha just for the visa deposit, and a round trip ticket is about 33,000. So for the two of you, it's about 70,000 kwacha before you can even talk about accommodation. So already that is restrictive, and you don't even know whether you're going to get this visa. So the United States of America looks at American interest. Like many countries, when they engage with you diplomatically, when they engage with you business-wise, it's in their interest. So it is in their interest that they should probably restrict Zambia. So I can't speak for them. They should restrict Zambia and they should restrict Malawi. Some of the reasons they have mentioned, I think for me the most valid one, is that they are concerned about the security of our travel document, our passport. In that case, in my view, that's not such a danger spot. In that case, all we need to do is sit with them and say, here is our passport, where are our weaknesses, so that we can correct that. That would not be such a bad thing, would it? Because if we did correct that, then this restriction would drop, and it will also help us with business, because when we start issuing new passports, the government will also make money. So it becomes a win-win situation. But apart from that, we'll still be able to get entrance into the United States. But like I was saying earlier on when you talked about engagement with other countries, why don't we just make Zambia great again? Why don't we just stay here in Zambia? I love the United States of America. It's the first country I ever went to as a young journalist. I think I was just about 22 years old. Imagine I was jumping on a plane. I was going to the land of milk and honey. The whole family came to see me off at the international airport. I was going to be away for a quarter of a year. I have never forgotten the experience. It's marvelous. I was in Washington, D.C., the state capital, living at the Carlisle Suites Hotel on New Hampshire Avenue. I was in Baton Rouge and Louisiana. It was great stuff, but I've gone there several times back. But after that, really, I just really want to be in Zambia, the land of 1,000 hills and 100 sunshines. So why don't we just make Zambia good enough so that we do not have to go to America? I'll tell you, when I moved from Washington, D.C. and went into Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Mississippi, the brothers, the Americans there, they were amused. They were like, oh, hey, this is our brother Anthony. He's from Africa. Can you believe he was in our state capital? Tell us about Washington, D.C. The guy is 25 years, 30 years ago. He's never been to DC.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because it's good enough where they are. So they don't need to go. Once you are born in Mongo, you don't need to go to Lusaka. You are born in Mazavuka, you don't need to go to Kasam.
Mm-hmm.
So my thinking is that this is a clarion call for us to make our countries, African countries, good enough. You know, put in as much as we can in building the economies and infrastructures so that we don't even need to discuss the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to. We've got, like I said, lots of land. We've got lots of peace. Nobody walks into a shop with an AK-47 and opens fire just because they feel different, you know.
Yes.
Here we just walk. Maybe somebody will slap you. Maybe you will have a car accident. Maybe somebody will step on your shoes. But we don't do the kind of crazy stuff that goes on around there. So it's in their national interest. I'm not going to blame them. And nobody should blame them. Yeah. The thing is, it should just wake us up to say we shouldn't depend on other countries. We should depend on Zambia, and we should expand our economic cohesion on the continent. Make our continent a better continent so that we do not have to look outside the continent, die on the sea, on a dinghy, on a small boat to try and go to another country. We've got a beautiful country here, believe me, a very beautiful country. You do not, our biggest investment has been that of peace. You do not wake up to bombs. You wake up to cocoricos, you know. Or as I heard on one of the local radio stations that depending on the company you stay, in the morning you just say Mfuiti, Ule,
Or sometimes
Kawalala.
it's my battery.
My battery, yes, my battery, Yosila, that kind of thing, you know. Not bullets and guns and visas, you know. It's a bad thing. It's going to cripple because everybody needs to trade with the United States. Yeah, it's a bit crippling, but they have given their own reasons, so we should look at those reasons. The other reason they gave, such as visa overstays, in my view, is a little questionable because some of the major overstays, among the 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, they do not come from Zambia. They come from countries such as Brazil, Mexico, Colombia. Zambia only has about 3,000 Zambians, and among them, the overstays are probably 1%. So maybe there is something they're not telling us. But I think their major concern has been that of the security of our passport, because that can be abused by other countries. Remember, we are in SADC region. People can come here, and sometimes the systems are porous. They get our travel document and they enter the United States and they do not come back. They commit crimes. Those crimes are seen as Zambian crimes, and yet they are not. Because I think if you go anywhere else, you will find out that Zambians are not seen as really criminals. We do not engage into criminal activities to alarming levels.
So now actually taking, I would say, a turn this year, we've seen how relations between Zambia and USA haven't been quite as smooth as we'd like to hope.
Indeed.
We've had press briefings where we get to find out as a nation, breaking news. We find out certain information as a nation that we're supposed to know in advance via Facebook.
Indeed.
And via notices given to American citizens. Some might say, or the question is, what is the best course of action that the government must take to ensure that we don't get to be found in such situations whereby it's quite embarrassing that the world and Zambians find out together on Facebook about an issue that's affecting Zambians. So what should the government do? Because some said it's going against diplomatic policy. Why go straight to the media when you can speak to government first and then they speak to the media?
I think we need to be proactive. If I was one of the chief advisors in the government, I would say this issue is bound to come out whether we like it or not. So in order for it not to be heard from another source, let us announce that we're going to have a shortage of milling meal because there's been a drought. Instead of having an external source mention it, let us announce that we're going to have a shortage of electricity because we have exported. Let us announce that there's going to be a shortage of drugs because there is an investigation going on. That will be the only way, because the moment you do not preempt these major issues, then you are creating fertile ground for somebody else to do it, especially if you have a partner such as the United States of America, the European Union. If they have put in money into a water reticulation program and they said it should be realized in a year, and a year passes, you have not implemented that, and they have met you 2-3 times and you have not said anything, they are accountable to their taxpayers and their government. They are bound to come out in the open and say that we are concerned that this project has not been implemented. But if you are proactive, which is what my recommendation would be, you would say, we have had meetings with our partners and they are concerned about this, so this is what we are doing in order to correct the situation. That way we would not be hearing it from the media. So it's a very simple thing, because if you do not announce, it appears as if you're doing a cover-up. Yeah, but if you announce, because you're using other people's money, remember? They also have people they are answerable to. So if you show that you're doing something towards an agreement that you have with them, there will be no need for them to go on an embassy page and start telling you that we understand there's a cyber law, we understand there was a spill in the river, we understand there was a maize issue, that kind of thing. So just proactivity, not firefighting, not reactive.
Okay. Now, you have mentioned about the League of African Ambassadors, known as the LAA, drawing more than 200 serving and retired envoys from across Africa. Even the Secretary to the Cabinet, Patrick Kangwa, Zambia's top civil servant, and welcomes the LAA Planning Committee, pledging full support on behalf of President Hakainde Hichilema. Now, what inspired the formation of LAA?
The inspiration behind them, this is a very important question. Remember, when you were asking me about Zambia and kind of being quiet, the inspiration behind by the founding fathers, by the way, I'm part of the planning committee. I'm head of media and publicity in the planning committee for Zambia.
Okay.
By the way, this is a continental body. It's not only Zambia. It's retired or recalled ambassadors, including serving ones. Yeah, so the inspiration behind the League of African Ambassadors, according to what I've been told and what I've seen in the charter, is, there is a high premium placed on using experience. I think if you heard recently the president of Botswana, when he went viral on I'm a wounded healer, not a wounded punisher or anything like that, was the fact that when you take out somebody with my experience, who has worked in diplomacy for almost 10 years, or who has worked in the media for more than 20 years, it takes another 2 to 3 years to fill up that experience, that wealth of knowledge, that institutional memory that I do have, So instead of discarding this experience that I've had in the foreign service for 10 years, that I've had in the media for 30 years, why not put it in a pot, cook it up, and serve it up as part of the meal for greater economic diplomacy, for greater regional cohesion? We talk about recycling bottles. We talk about recycling, steel and other stuff, that nothing should go to waste.
Yes.
So why do you want to bring somebody whom you have educated so much, who has so much information and networks from abroad, from African Union, from the United Nations, from Germany, from Sweden, and then you discard them? I mean, take, for instance, myself. I'm just in my early 50s. So do you want me to retire now? I don't even have one single gray hair. In fact, some people say I look 20. Mm-hmm. I'm sure. What did you think?
You're somewhere 2030.
I'm in my 50s, and I have all this experience. So what I remember hearing an interview by Ambassador Lazarus Kapembwa, the special envoy to the president of Zambia, who said, it takes a long time to cook a village chicken. I don't know whether you guys eat village chicken. I just love it. It takes a long time. Cook the village chicken, to throw in the curry, to throw in the tomato and the onion, the aroma, but it only takes about a minute to eat it. So it takes a lot, and you enjoy it a lot. It takes a lot to bring together a crop of experienced ambassadors with their networks, their education. So to just throw them away when they have returned because either a government has changed or not is a no-no. Like they say in military parlance, generals do not retire. They just get tired. In fact, there is a segment where in the military, senior army officers, they remain in the military for 5 years after they have retired. Because when there is something strategic that needs to be done, they fall upon their wisdom and their experience. So hence the inspiration for the League of African Ambassadors. It is a non-profit organization. It is strictly voluntary. It is also non-partisan. So it does not interfere into partisan politics, because it's easier to open doors for economic diplomacy, for peace building, for cohesion, for mentorship if you are non-partisan. Because when we are serving in the foreign service, we do not serve as partisan people. We serve as national representatives. We serve as a face and personal representative of the president and face and representative of the nation. So hence some people, some gentlemen and some ladies more intelligent than myself sat together and said, we need to have this think tank where we can tap into the knowledge, reuse or recycle this knowledge that we have built over the years. And that's what has brought about the League of African Ambassadors. It was signed and registered here in Zambia after some sort of resistance from other African countries. And then the better men, the forefathers, said, hey, Lusaka, Zambia, that's the home of SADC, that's the home of COMESA, that is the last bastion of democracy. Why don't we try that? And in the last 2 years, that has come through. So just think of it as this think tank, where when you have a problem in Mozambique, you have a problem in Angola, you have a problem in the DRC, you can tap, you have a problem in Germany, you can come to me, and we are there to ensure that we offer what we can to make Zambia, to make the African diplomacy a more stellar institution than it has been. The same way that you have the Law Association of Zambia, the same way that you have the EAZ, the same way that you have these other institutions that help with national building. You see what the Law Association of Zambia does. If there is an issue on the table that has got national legal implications, they come in and interpret it. The Economics Association of Zambia, perhaps once in a time, they will also interpret an economic decision. So the League of African Ambassadors is starting on a good footing, and we are very happy with the kind of vibe and groove we are getting from the government. We have had some good meetings with the top civil servant whom you mentioned. We're glad that you followed that. Mr. Patrick Kangwa, the secretary to the cabinet, we have met. Just 2 days ago, we had another very good meeting, because it should be launched here in Lusaka in a few weeks' time. We had another very good meeting with Her Worship, the mayor of Lusaka.
Yes.
We are most grateful, Madam Chitangala Chilando. And we have met institutions such as the United Bank of Africa. We've got our hands full, really, to try and set into motion this historic diplomacy masterpiece. It's going to be a great thing. As Trump would say, it's going to be the big, beautiful League of African Ambassadors ever in Africa.
You mentioned how the LAA is non-political and also non-profit, but as we've seen time and time again, always somehow politics bleeds into institutions. So what steps or safeguards has the LAA put in place to ensure that you still remain non-partisan?
We were non-partisan when we were ambassadors because we served the country. So we are really not rewriting the wheel. But just to get back to you, so this irresponsible father comes home one day drunk, and the 7-year-old daughter said, "Dad, I'm hungry." And the dad says, "Stop talking politics." So all I'm saying is, you can loosely say everything is politics. Shelter is politics, education is politics, poverty is politics, health is politics. But we come already from that state of affair where we have worked, all of us. I'm probably one of the younger ones and more junior ones. I'm really privileged to be among these distinguished gentlemen and ladies. They have worked into diplomacy for more than 10, 15, some of them 20 years. So from different governments and different aspirations and different ideologies. So I think in the charter also it is embedded in the guidelines that you are not supposed to veer towards politics as you are in this. So we'll try. Yeah, it's like I can't avoid breathing the same air with you. We are in the same room.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just the way we breathe. Yeah, so we will try. There is also, guidelines to ensure that you do not contaminate the organization with your political aspirations. Human beings are political animals. Like I have said, food is politics, shelter is politics, and all these other things. But I think we have enough training to know where our political limitations are. And we also, like I said earlier, know that people will open doors for you much easier when they don't see a political face compared to when they see, because we say, "Oh, Shekinah. Shekinah, isn't that the young lady from UNIP? Oh, you're talking about Fortrace. Oh, you mean the one from MMD? No. Oh, you're talking about Mukwita, the guy from UPND? No, we can't, So the moment you color things with politics, you sort of close the doors for yourselves. And the League of African Ambassadors, which is not Zambian, I must emphasize, is looking at ensuring that the success is pivoted on non-partisanship, and non-profit. Yeah,
Okay.
it is pivoted on mentorship. It is pivoted on ensuring that if there is a problem, and the serving ambassadors, by the way, it's not only the recalled ambassadors like ourselves. It is the ambassadors that are also serving. They are all part of the whole think tank. So we're still in the moment of refining the league. Like you've seen that movie, The League of Distinguished Gentlemen. Yes, and women this time around. So that this is what we are looking at.
Okay.
It's going to be. We will invite you to cover up. I think there's going to be. That's why we were meeting the mayor, because there's going to be lots of very important people regionally who will come in, and the mayor is the city mother, or rather the city father. She's got a key to the city, and she has to be. She's agreed to be part of the welcoming team to bring in the people. As we said, who knows where we go? The African Union was registered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and ended up having the headquarters in Addis Ababa. UNEP was registered and formed in Kenya, and the headquarters ended up being in Kenya. COMESA was registered in Zambia, and the headquarters ended up, who knows? I mean, this, I'm not speaking on behalf of the planning committee, I'm not speaking on behalf of the what, but it's a start, who knows? We could have another continental body established right here in Zambia. So the tunnel looks bright for diplomacy. And we also just want to say, I don't want to retire. I'm 50. I want
You're very
to
young.
Yes, I can't start going into the garden with my Gucci's and start. That's not what I was bred for. I was bred for diplomacy
Yes.
and cohesion. So I don't want to retire. So we have to reinvent ourselves for the betterment of our nations. We have to reuse. We have to recycle. We have to find relevance to make our countries better diplomatically.
And how can the youth be part of this? Is there an opening for them to actually join?
There is actually, part of it is youth mentorship. I will share the charter with you guys. I mean, because look, when you're looking at countries like Zambia, more than 50% of the population is a youthful population. So you can't talk about economic diplomacy, cohesion, and future building if you do not involve the youth. So these are some of the things that is work in progress. How shall you enhance diplomacy also among the youth? Maybe. Are you going to find somebody who's going to help with the mentorship so that you can start growing a crop of future diplomats, who will understand diplomacy and embrace it at a younger age as they go on? So everybody, several aspects will be looked at, including maybe seeking a seat at the African Union as an advisory body, maybe seeking a seat maybe at the United Nations on an observer status, all these issues, just to remain busy, because there is enough space for everybody to do something good for the country rather than sit and rot.
Well, Ambassador Mukwita, it has been a very insightful conversation. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fortrace and Ms. Shekinah. I must say you guys have done a great job here, and I must thank Brother Kenny T. I haven't been in a studio this bright and beautiful, and also I haven't been interviewed by two beautiful women in a very long time. One maybe, but two has been a bonus. Thanks very much. Also on the on behalf of the League of African Ambassadors for sneaking in this question, even when we're supposed to be discussing your other issues. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much as well. Oh, this has been Voice of the People right here on the Power Breakfast. We were joined in the studio by Ambassador Anthony Ruvinda Mukwita, of course, to discuss Zambia's foreign policy across key regions and the League of African Ambassadors' role in advancing diplomacy, peace, and continental unity. The breakfast show continues on the other side.
Voice of